Greetings to all of you who have joined us this morning as we tackle quite another topic, specifically looking at broadly governance in our country, but more so the issue of professionalization. We talk capacity development, we talk ethical governance. And let me welcome my panelists and welcome all of you from the audience who have joined us. That's on behalf of Future Cities Africa and of course the Municipal Edge, as we venture to the last of the 4 webinars in this webinar series on local government, white paper on local government, not meaning we are closing shop. We still have local government conversations, a webinar that will be taking place on the 19th of August. If you are not registered yet, please do so that you don't miss out. And as I get to the technicalities of today, more the housekeeping, it will be proper for me to first thank and acknowledge Dr. Ngobo from our team, Municipal Edge, and also Dan for really going a long way in ensuring that we've got this platform that has been created, in ensuring that we do have these conversations. Conversations that started 5 years ago, because we are in our 5th anniversary in 2026, and of course it would not have been possible for those who contribute to the panel conversations. It would not have been possible without you as the audience in ensuring that we drive these conversations for impact, which is our theme for this year, but also to see how best we can influence what is happening within our institutions. And of course, acknowledging and thanking our platinum sponsor for this series, Business Engineering, for being on this journey with us, I'll say for quite a sizable number of years. We do appreciate that support, which then ensures that we are able to deliver. As I've indicated, for an example, it's our 4th webinar in this series, indicating that Dan and team, we have achieved 100% if we are to do the review come our next meeting for this particular webinar. We've got a panel today that will really take us through some of the, I would say, the critical items and aspects in terms of this conversation, which focuses on various areas. But of course, we do have our partners who have been with us in this series, which I will acknowledge as we go along on the conversation itself. To the audience, I see, you know the drill, just indicating where you are joining us from, the institution, because, and one thing that I need to mention for this webinar, it was a pleasure noticing that we've got quite a sizable number from municipalities who have registered, but it goes beyond municipalities, probably for the first time, where we see a variety of departments from corporate services, that will be your legal services, your human resource management, we've got engineers, we've got right across the municipalities, local economic development practitioners, but outside the municipalities, we've got national departments, we've got provincial departments, and of course, local government, various institutions of higher learning, as we have in our panel. Also, Dr. Marisa will be talking specifically from the National School of Government, civil society, various institutes, in terms of the professionalization that we're talking about, academia, and all the other partners that I might not have mentioned. That's how broad and open our audience is. Without wasting time, let's allow Zuki, who will be just setting the basis and the baseline for our conversation this morning, just to really share also from the experience of Drakenstein municipality in terms of the successes. We know Drakenstein, I believe it's the best municipality in the Western Cape. It's also one of those municipalities, if you talk about clean audits and related matters, it's always on top. Zuki, let me hand over to you and welcome once more.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that glitch. As introduced, my name is Nokuzuka Zuki Matolengwe. I work for Drakenstein Municipality, I'm sorry, which is about 65 kilometers from Cape Town. The head offices are in Paarl, and we also have offices in Sarah, Nermon, Gouda, Wellington, and Simondium. I'm sorry. Sorry. I've been requested to come and do a presentation on professionalization, capacity development, and ethical governance, and also share some best practice from our municipality. My presentation will not be based really on the legislative framework, but I've been guided by the key legislative frameworks that are indicated on our screen. I'm sorry, I am a bit fluish. I was trying to grab some water earlier on, then I saw that my video is actually on and I stopped. All right. What is professionalization in terms of the national framework for professionalization? The agenda of the national framework actually is to ensure that we do competency-based appointments as municipalities or public sector, and that we enforce ethical leadership, and that there is continuous professional development, and that we implement performance management. We encourage or enhance skills in terms of skills development, and that succession planning is in place, and also making sure that everybody's accountable throughout the organization. So in other words, professionalization, it is said to not be a once-off initiative. It needs patience because we must make sure that all systems are in place that will make us achieve what we want to achieve in terms of professionalization. As mentioned, professionalization ensures that we employ suitably qualified and competent officials. In other words, we must make sure that the people that we appoint are competent. How do we do that? In terms of our case in Drakenstein Municipality, we ensure that the questions that are asked in interviews are competency-based. You know, previously, before even the municipal, the key legislation was effective in terms of municipal staff regulations, we were just asking questions that at the end of the day, we won't be able to know whether this person is competent or not, because we'd ask questions like, what legislation is there that ensure that people are equipped with skills, and the person will respond, Skills Development Act. But now we need to ask relevant questions. Instead of asking such questions, we have shifted now into asking, tell us, how do you go about doing a skills audit? So that you can be able to see whether this person is actually really competent to do the job. You understand? And also, what do you do when you want to implement the workplace skills plan, so that you get a bigger picture of the competencies of the person that you want to appoint. We must make sure in this way we'll be able to appoint on merit. You know, we'll be able to appoint on merit or recruit on merit, and also in terms of promotions. Professionalization encourages continuous learning and development. Compliance, it also encourages compliance with professional standards, accountability for performance, and building of a culture of excellence and service. So, in other words, in terms of compliance with professional standards, what we do in Drakenstein Municipality, we have a budget. We have a budget that is ring-fenced only to ensure our staff that needs to register with professional bodies do so that they are licensed to do the job that they want to do. Whether it's someone at HR or engineering, we have a budget for that specific intention to ensure that people comply with professional standards of their field. And also in terms of building a culture of excellence and service, we ensure there's a culture. In actual fact, we must be very wary of who is appointed in the public sector, because with our municipality, before our current city manager was appointed, we only had bursaries for people that want to study junior degrees. And then there was a turnaround strategy to say, you know what, leadership, management, line managers also need to be equipped with the necessary skills. So everybody must be provided with an opportunity to study what they want to study. At the end of his term, we are going to produce 3 people that got a PhDs under his leadership. Because there's bursaries now for masters, there's bursaries for people that want to do PhD or not. So in terms of culture of excellence and service, that is what we have done. And we also have a culture turnaround strategy for employee wellness, because we used to have an annual employee wellness initiative, but now every month and sometimes every quarter, we have employee wellness initiatives. For an example, we have employee wellness for women's health. We have employee wellness for men's health. We have long service recognitions and so forth. Things that were never there, but because we want to make sure that we are professional in our space, these were introduced in a different magnitude than before. Why does professionalization matter? The benefits of professionalization, of course, because people will be capacitated with all the necessary skills that they want in terms of continuous training and providing them with the skills that they require to perform their jobs. Of course, service delivery will be improved. There will be reduced maladministration once we act in a professional way, or we introduce professionalization in our municipalities, because people will be following rules, policies. There won't be delays in performing functions and so forth. And also professionalization, it's one of these benefits is for better financial management. The other day, I think day before yesterday, line managers and everybody else that has to work in terms of financial management was introduced to a new system, online budgeting management. So no longer we are going to submit papers that we cannot even fold sometimes as big as they are. We are now going to do our budgeting on the system itself and submit it as such. And one of other benefits is for improved audit outcomes. Of course, this will increase public confidence because they can see that the municipality is actually working. There will be enhanced institutional stability and greater organizational resilience. So in other words, whatever challenges that we face will be a strong institution such that we come out better in everything that we do. Capacity building strategies that promote professionalization whether it's individual capacity, institutional capacity, and community capacity. One of the strategies that promote is to ensure that everyone at least has knowledge in terms of technical knowledge, the use of technology. What do you use for record keeping? What do you use to eliminate paper in terms of digital skills? Are you still are you applying for your leave on paper or in books? Because now things are turning in the public sector, especially for municipalities. We are introducing e-recruitment, which for us is new, because we had a lot of delays typing long lists of people that have applied for positions. Sometimes we get 600 applications. Now we have changed. Now we are going to use soon. We've done all the tests and so forth. We are going soon to be using e-recruitment. Our online, our overtime is going to be applied for online now. And of course, leave has been introduced long time ago for us to do self-service or apply for leave online. So it is important for us as the public sector to get out of ways of doing things in the past. Always there's paper on our tables, and try by all means to go paperless. In terms of institutional capacity, to promote professionalization, we must make sure we have our policies in place, but not only having our policies in place, we must also ensure that our policies are reviewed. It is one thing to have a policy in place that was approved in 2012, and in 2026, we are still using the same policy. There are so many systems that have changed, legislation that have changed, so we must always make sure that we actually review our policies. We have standard operating procedures in place, and also change in organizational culture and governance systems. In terms of promotion of professionalization in community capacity, we can talk maybe an example about public participation. Public participation, previously in our municipality, it was done at night when everybody else is at work. But nowadays, we do our public participation from the morning till so in other words, we don't wait for people that are at work, because there's a lot of people that are unemployed that also have questions that are at home. So that is how we do to build that picture to the community, that we are there for them, and that we will make time as a municipality to come to them to talk about public participation. So all of these actually require for us to partner with our communities, to partner with learning institutions, to partner with the private sector and other government departments. Let's touch quickly on ethical governance. Ethical governance, for me, I always make things easier for myself. What is ethical governance? Is to do the right thing, even if there's no one watching. You have to tap into your your moral values, your honesty in terms of ethical governance. We must act in the public interest, We should avoid conflict of interest, whether it's a recruitment process that is running, it's procurement. We must recuse ourselves in situations where we know that we have family that is maybe also applied for a job, for an example. We shouldn't sit in committees where we know that there's a conflict of interest. We must declare and recuse ourselves. Ethical governance promotes, it's a promotion of fairness. When you are following your ethics or moral values, you should know that you don't favor one person over the other. You don't favor certain communities over other communities. You should be fair and do things in a fair way. protection of public resources. Do we have a policy in place that actually ensures that the public resources are protected? What do we do in cases of theft of public resources? At some point, people were especially from maybe, let's say, departments like electricity, where they work with copper, to steal copper. Do you tolerate that, or you have zero tolerance for such behavior? We should make transparent decisions and lead with integrity if we want to be an ethical organization. Lastly, we're going to talk about performance management and development. These days, we should actually listen to ourselves when we're talking about performance management, because performance management is not only performance management, it's performance management and development. It aims to improve both individual and organizational outcomes. So performance management development system, it aims to improve both individual and organizational outcomes. In other words, it's not a punitive measure. It's a measure to make sure that we do things better for the betterment of our organization. It plays a vital role in ensuring that employees understand expectations, they receive regular feedback, and are supported in achieving their objectives. Before the municipal the regulations, staff regulations were implemented, we were already implementing performance management in terms of rolling it out to lower level employees. But because the unions did not want for employees to be subjected to performance management evaluations, so we introduced, our current city manager introduced employee efficiency monitoring tool, which actually acts in terms of checking how our employees are they functioning very well within their functions, or do they need any assistance? And also currently, in terms of we have a tool that also supports performance management and development. That tool is called SUPLIS. SUPLIS means supervisor listens. So in other words, you have quarterly interactions with your staff where you find out, are they fine? Do they have any tools of trade? Are there any support that they need to perform their functions, so that by the time we do performance assessments, we have actually rectified and clarify all these that are required by our employees through the SUPLIS system. So regular feedback is important in terms of performance management and development, and also we should support our employees. Performance management and development system not only is there to monitor and evaluate performance, but also to foster continuous development, engagement, and productivity. I've already mentioned that through the employee municipal staff regulations, implementation is from managers to our lower level employees. We are also now introduced a system in place so that our lower level employees also their performance management agreements and assessments are done online. Maybe Ati can just add maybe some more information in terms of that, because we're using Ignite for that. So for performance management to run effectively, we must have a policy in place or a framework in place. We must ensure that our job descriptions are there, but they are in the correct format that is required, and they are graded, and that they are smart. The KPIs are smart, because in most cases we tend to forget that a job description actually the KPIs must be measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. You'll find out someone in the job description, you write, I submit a workplace skills plan. When? Annually. So all those things you must check as managers to ensure that the KPIs used in job descriptions are smart. We must ensure that there is a consultative process that takes place. People must know what is coming their way. Unions need also to know what is coming their constituencies' way. We should enforce, actually, for anything that we do in the HR space, change management. Because if we do not enforce change management, people will be resistant and they will be confused and they will not be aware what is coming there. They will not get an opportunity to ask questions, so that they can be clarified before we implement any other system. In terms of consequence management in our policies, we should understand that performance management is not supposed to be punitive. However, we must be able to know through our policies what happens when someone is not performing, because termination is the last resort of employees when they do not perform. We need to support them. We need to take them through, various courses. We need to just check whether their current skills are in line with their jobs or not. We need to ensure that the managers also, must also take responsibility in terms of what have they done to ensure that they support the employee that is not performing. There must be performance agreements and assessments in place, because it's one thing for us to have a policy, but we do not implement the policy accordingly, or we don't do performance assessments. It's just there for us to have it on paper. And if we decide on performance incentives, we're not there yet in my municipality in terms of performance incentives, but there are talks in terms of, does it have to be money? Does it have to be monetary? Can't we check things like time off for someone that has performed best in a particular month, notch increases, and so forth?
Okay, sorry, Zuki, as you begin on this slide and maybe working towards concluding in the next couple of minutes. Yes.
Yes, no, I'm almost done. I'm worried now that you are harassing me. I'm worried because there's a video that I wanted to play. It's fine. Practical strategies to promote professionalization, capacity development, and ethical governance. In summary, recruit and appoint on merit, invest in continuous training, strengthen ethics programs by ensuring that there are courses that are running to make people aware what ethical standards we want from our employees, conduct regular risk assessments so that controls can be in place, improve performance management, encourage whistleblowing, because sometimes it assists to know what is happening behind, the municipality back, so that we can strengthen whatever gaps that are there in terms of controls, strengthen internal audit functions by ensuring that every finding is going to be corrected, and time must be offered to say that we want this to be corrected by, a certain time or month. Foster ethical leadership. In terms of conclusion, as long as we all understand that professionalization is not a once-off process, we will continue to build capacity within our local government institutions and continue to cultivate a culture of ethical conduct. We need to strive to achieve professional, capable, and ethical institutions, as this is essential to delivering quality services, promote development and strengthen democracy, and of course, our communities will have trust in us as institutions. Any questions?
No, let's park for the questions for now. I'll be having one that I'll be fielding to you, so that you can start thinking about how you respond to that particular question, which came through the registration process. As I've indicated, and Dan has indicated, we've got about 130 of us at some point online. We do appreciate that, and also to mention that our webinars, we do have counselors in attendance as normal. We do have our partners within these webinars from the private sector itself, mentioning, for an example, SIGFARO as our partner and supporter of the webinars, the South African Local Government Association. We've got the Center for Municipal Asset Management. We've got the Institute for Municipal Personnel Practitioners of South Africa, and we've got the Institute for Local Government. Those are the partners that we've been holding hands for quite a number of years in ensuring that we deliver these webinars that we see. And thanks for that presentation, Zuki. What I will be doing, as I've indicated, we've got some questions that came through the registrations. And again, to the audience, keep the comments and questions coming so that our panelists, when that opportunity comes, they will then be in a position to deal with those particular questions. There's one that came from all the way from Alfred Duma, Municipality in Ladysmith, from Themba Ndlovu. It's something that you might have mentioned, Zuki, and even his question is a bit broad to say, what are the 5 priorities with timelines that could be suggested broadly for professionalization that we talk about within local government? But I would like you, as you deal with and trying to respond to that question later, maybe narrow it, those 5 priorities, to a municipality that really wants to take some lessons and draw some experience from your presentation to say, if you want to start, assuming you have not started, these are the steps or these are the key priorities that you would propose, also based on your experience. But that will come later, because after we take our last panelist, that will be Odwa, I will then allow you an opportunity to come in and then just respond to that question. As I usher in Ati Butler, as you've also indicated that in terms of your presentation as well, there will be some areas that Ati will be touching on. Ati, welcome. It's always great to have you contributing meaningfully to these conversations. Let me allow you to take the mic.
Thank you so much, Zulani. Really appreciate it to talk on the forum and maybe share some of our views from our side. Some of our comments might be a bit controversial, but it is, our observation in terms of what we see. So thank you. I think Zuki have highlighted why professionalization matters, what ethical governance is all about, and also, from a capacity development perspective, it is central to good quality performance management. I would like to focus or to build on that discussion by just sharing what currently happens on a national perspective, as well as, and maybe more importantly, what municipal management and human resources must do to make sure that professionalization is actually institutionalized within municipalities. Okay, so just to highlight one of the biggest recent developments, and that is the establishment of the 10 by 10 forum, which is national and provincial COCTAs, the national AG and their provincial offices. And the purpose of this forum is to make sure that they accelerate professionalization through the improvement of municipal audit outcomes. The forum focuses on the 5 priority outcomes as indicated on the slide. I've received the slide from Cocta, so I understand this is what they currently focus on, and the outcomes closely mirror the priorities contained in government's medium-term development plan. The implementation proposal is therefore not creating a new agenda, so they focus on the current agenda. They will try to stay with that, and then provides an implementation mechanism for achieving these outcomes that government has already identified in the past. Okay, it's also my understanding that IMSA and COPTA endorsed the professionalization framework as the building blocks, which include, if we look at the original white paper, then it envisages on professional municipal administrations, merit-based appointments, capable institutions, ethical leadership, and development of local government. Today, these principles are being translated into implementation through, and if you remember, and I think Zuki also referred to that, the medium-term development plan, the municipal staffing regulations, which got a huge impact. And I can't say that there's any municipality that has fully implemented the staffing regulations yet. There's quite a bit of work to be done there. The performance regulations, and Zuki also highlight that, and you need to have a proper tool, to make sure that it drives or enable the process. The professionalization agenda, which is summarized on this slide, and then the IMSA COCTA implementation framework. I think this slides confirm that the discussion has moved from why should we professionalize to how do we implement professionalization consistently across every municipality. The framework therefore provides municipalities with an integrated implementation model rather than just isolated initiatives. And as the previous speaker also indicated, it's not a once-off project, it is a process. It also connects the six strategic interventions, which include professional appointments, in other words, based on merits and all the things that Zuka has indicated, competency frameworks and assessments for all positions. It is not about asking the right questions. It is making sure and testing that individuals have the right competencies or develop their competencies to deliver their work professionally. Municipal optimization, which can be perhaps Zulani and Doc, can be a separate discussion at a later stage or maybe in the next session, because we can say a lot about municipal optimization. That's part of the process. And as you can see on the slide, I've highlighted one or two optimization processes. Coming back to the question that was asked in terms of what do we need to do now to make sure that we move in the right direction. It is maybe to start with the optimization process and then performance management and development, but it should not be merely compliance, which a lot of municipalities currently do. It should rather focus on how do we actually measure performance and how do we make sure that we use that as a developmental tool to enhance efficiency and to make sure that people are working on the right standard and they professionalize themselves in the way that they operate. Ethics, accountability, and disciplinary systems. Okay. Supporting these are obviously capacity building, monitoring and evaluation, digital platforms to assist us to make the right decision with the right data, professional registration. How can we say that we're professional if we don't professionalize ourselves in terms of our qualifications as well as our the way of doing things in our experience? And then knowledge sharing and national implementation support. And my belief is government can make this framework work, it will possibly be the one of the best initiatives to enhance service delivery that they've done so far. Okay. One of the biggest shifts must be that HR is no longer simply an administrative support function. HR should become strategic, and you'll see that a lot of the references that I make in information in the slides are maybe a bit more strategic focused because HR needs to move in that direction, and the custodian of organizational capability. In other words, making sure that they create capacity and the municipality from leadership straight to the most junior employee is properly developed. There's some succession planning and also some of the elements that Zuki has referred to. I think the exciting development is that these principles are no longer simply aspirations. Through the professionalization framework, they are being translated into practical implementation model and a monitoring mechanism that municipalities must constantly apply and making sure that they measure themselves against it. Okay. Municipalities and HR needs to understand that they need to step up with tools, with processes to ultimately connect governance, performance, and professionalization as a whole with all the elements that's built into it. Capacity building, for example, should no longer be viewed as simply training. It should be scientifically, or the competency should be scientifically tested, having the right recruitment, having the right onboarding, having the right learning mechanisms in place, having effective performance management, supported by coaching, succession planning, and professional registration into one integrated capability framework. I think if we can do that, then we're definitely on the right track so that HR becomes the implementation agent of professionalization. So as I've mentioned before, and maybe I think Zuki highlighted that as well, professionalization is not achieved by publishing another policy or by just implementing policies. It actually happens every time that the municipality appoints the right person, develops the right skills, measure the right performance, reward ethical leadership, and continuously build organizational professionalization. The opportunity before us is therefore what I think quite significant. For the first time, South Africa has the policy direction, has the correct frameworks in place, and an emerging implementation model that has been developed and endorsed by IMSA and COCTA that can translate the vision of this work environment into measurable improvements within the municipal performance. The question is no longer whether we should professionalize, I think, local government. The question is rather whether we are prepared to lead and transform, which is quite a difficult question. And if we say yes, there's a lot that still needs to be done. Drakenstein, I think, for them to get onto this level, and they're quite effective in the way that they do things currently, I think, it took them almost 7 years to get to this point. So it's quite a bit of work. So in conclusion, it is my view that HR department or the municipality has not professionalized yet. I think that we still have a lot of work to be done. Yes, we do comply in many instances. And just to prove my view, I've asked these 6 questions to a group of municipal managers at the Forum recently. And I said they need to be very honest in providing me with feedback in terms of these questions. And they have indicated that if they are honest, they can possibly respond to a maximum of 2 questions positively. So that means there's still a bit of work that needs to be done. We must probably have to go back to the drawing board, analyze our current situation, and then implement quickly. So just to what we have done and what we have learned in the process and to assist municipalities, we have developed a professionalization readiness scorecard that municipalities can quickly assess themselves or with our support to determine whether the municipality is ready across all areas. And we have developed a maturity model showing the journey from compliance to capacity building to performance to a professional municipality, and then ultimately to institutional excellence. And then this is supported by a practical 100-day action plan, to get to that point. So finally, I think the keynote has reminded us why professionalization matters. The next challenge is the implementation. Policies alone do not professionalize municipalities. I think people do, systems do, leadership does. Human resource professionals therefore have this unique opportunities to move beyond compliance and to create the architecture of a capable, ethical, and high-performing municipality. If we get it right, professionalization will become achievable. If we don't, it remains an aspiration. And with that, Zulani, I thank you.
Thanks a lot, and that's great, Ati, which also confirms the reason why we did actually pair you with Zuki. Because both of you and the audience might agree with me, we are not talking about the future or something that will be happening tomorrow. It's something that is happening now. And it also gives that comfort that we have moved from just talking about these developments, the evolution of local government, but most importantly, how do we create the local government that we have reimagined. Before I get to the CEO of SIGFARO, there are two things that I need to tackle. There is a request from the audience for Zuki to be allowed to share the video. My proposal will be perhaps as you attend to the question that I posed earlier on, Zuki, if there are any elements from the video itself that might assist, you can incorporate. Then you can share the video with us. We will then share the video when we distribute the content with the recording itself. That will be my proposal. But as I transition to the CEO of SIGFARO, again, when it comes to your presentation, Ati, I do have a question, in fact, that I believe you will be able to provide some insights, which again, as we get to the next segment of our conversation, you will be in a position to reflect on that from one of our regular attendees, participants in our webinars, all the way from Grayton to Duzi Madonsela. The question is more about what binding mechanisms and institutional reforms can municipalities adopt immediately. It links to the previous question that went to Zuki to actually formalize professionalization. Again, no presentation is touching on that, but in response to this specific question, it will be great just to spot those. It goes further to say to ensure the ethical governance, merit-based appointments, which again, if one looks at chapter 5 of the white paper on local government, it specifically reflects on the merit-based appointments, appointing those who are fit for purpose, and more so performance accountability are then embedded within the municipal systems. That will then also link to the fact that Ignite Advisory Services is currently active in many of the municipalities, providing a service to this particular effect. On that note, let me welcome the CEO of SIGFARO, Nagisani Matobo. And again, I believe, CEO, it will be a great pleasure to you and to SIGFARO, given like the municipalities like Drakenstein municipality, that really take the issue of membership to the professional bodies quite seriously in ensuring that, as Zuki has indicated, it becomes important not only for municipalities, if we are intentional, and I believe you will touch on those issues as well, about the professionalization agenda, about capacity development, ethical governance. Let's ring-fence the budgets, as she has indicated, to ensure that officials indeed do participate and contribute in the best way you can. And I link that with the drive by SIGFARO, specifically run from your office as CEO, of the attainment of 5,000 membership come the end of this financial year. And again, I believe those are the areas that will be touching on. Let me also acknowledge your team, which has joined. I see in the audience the team from SIGFARO. Without wasting more time, CEO, let me allow you to come in just to share the insights from SIGFARO what is currently happening, the current developments in actually giving life to this conversation that we are having today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and greetings again to your entire audience. I think in the main, you have contextualized the aspect so well. I'm just going to talk to the key insights because the key presentation has already been done by Zugi so well. From our side, as SIGFARO, professionalization thereof is at the center, and to an extent at the center of us responding to the key challenges that different municipalities are facing. We are the institute that are in probably interactions with most of the municipalities, I will say all, in a sense. And to an extent, you'll find that there are common challenges when it comes to skills gap thereof. So we become then the center of making sure that there is great transformation within that space. I think also our viewpoint has also improved from a sense of saying we don't want municipalities to be accolades of receiving clean audits and all of those accolades in terms of specific pockets of performance. If you look overall, that is the bigger picture for us. We are sitting now currently with about 45 or 41 out of 257 municipalities that are managing to attain clean audits. So that is, or that posture on its own, is very concerning from our side, because the main aspects thereof is to say that professionalization aspect must be able to make an impact from a performance perspective. It means that on all of those municipalities that are attaining clean audit, that should be translated also to what are the key initiatives that they have done to change the life of ordinary citizens, let alone to deal with the issue of saying, how do we rebuild the confidence that we should always maintain within the municipalities? So it becomes the center of saying, our professionalization aspects in terms of the implementation thereof is realized to make that kind of an impact. Secondly, it's about also bringing together the key stakeholders that will address these issues. Like I'm saying, there need to be a transformation. We should be able to see an impact, meaning a transformation where all municipalities are seen to be providing just the basic service delivery, and that can be translated to a governance issue in terms of clean audits and other aspects thereof that are important. But also bringing all the key stakeholders. Currently, you'll understand that the operation of municipalities have different stakeholders that are probably important, and to an extent, the element of bringing in those stakeholders. Case in point is councillors. Our programs also, we are also looking at the fact that let's make sure that because the impact of performance of a municipality is not only focused on a specific administration office from the accounting officer point of view, but there are these stakeholders that are councillors that makes a big impact in terms of saying, if now they are left behind, you might find that whatever initiatives or the political initiatives that they are implementing or priorities are not aligned with the impact that we intend to make from that space. So they are also part of the key deliverables in terms of that. Also, another thing is about the focus, because majority of now currently from the operation perspective, we tend to focus on the professional officials that are within the different entities. It means that the professionalization aspect now is taking lead in terms of saying every sector thereof must be professionalized. Whether you're dealing with engineering, accounting, IT, and all of those things, you should be able to belong to a certain professional body that's going to be able to transform you from a skill set perspective. But I think the main thing, again, in terms of that aspect, is to say we have been seeing an element where we leave behind the young professionals, the students, those that are coming from an element of a higher learning perspective, where probably if we start these initiatives from that ground, you'll be able to see a greater impact in terms of saying, when they now transit into higher institutions, probably of corporate environments, they are coming from an area where they are equipped in terms of understanding this key concept of professionalization. To an extent, you'll find that because they are so hyped just to get in and continue with work, you might find that they are so vulnerable in terms of areas of performance thereof. So we become also intentional in terms of making sure that those areas are addressed from a grassroots perspective. Now, when you bring in, coupling it just that point, is the element of ethical leadership. You'll say it so well to say that now we are dealing with also a lot of issues. All of those things are interrelated. The reason some of those we are not attaining clean audits in some of the municipalities or clean performance is mainly because of the ethical issues that we are facing from the ground. Now, even though we are dealing with historic issues currently with most of the officials that are seen to be creating a negative connotation to all our institutions, if we were to focus also on those young professionals to deal with the ethical issues from the ground, because some of the key initiatives that we are saying is to say Institute of Higher Learning should also initiate part of these things, and also universities, where it becomes the key learning part, where you don't talk ethical leadership or ethical professionalization when you are already at a helm of what you are expected to do, but you do those initiatives from a learning perspective. So it becomes key to say ethical leadership should be a matter where it's addressed from a historic perspective. However, when we look at the future, these are future leaders. So we must be able to make sure that we become at the center of that transformation. Second to last is the issue of the positioning of the white paper as now currently reviewed, and all of the key initiatives now becomes the center of saying, be part of a professional body. SIGFARO is one of those of which we are saying, if then you are a member, and then you are able then to be able to be seen, probably a gap between the time probably you join an institution from a performance gap perspective, and also the initiatives that you have put in place to make sure that if you attend certain events, certain workshops, you are able to transform and be able to get, because part of these things is that we are trying by all means to make all of these initiatives so practical, rather than making them theoretical in a way where you still have to go and unpack most of the things. So they become so practical and intentional to focus on the problems that most of the municipalities are facing. So it's going to be important that within your area of operation, you probably find space to make sure that you join a specific institution, because the implementation thereof is going to now say all of the practitioners that are dealing with specific aspects, and it's no longer focusing on finance or only governance. Like I've said, the focus is mainly to address all the specific areas of importance and to make sure that they're fully addressed. Thank you so much for that time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, CEO. And as you conclude, and also for the benefit of our audience, the call that you are making of belonging to an institute, to a council, because I see again many role players within the audience from various institutions that serve specifically that purpose. Myself, I'm a member of SIGFARO in good standing, and it's not because the CEO has spoken nicely about SIGFARO. I've been into conferences, seminars, webinars. There is a shift, I'll say fundamentally, as the CEO is saying. We don't only go to these events and sessions just for conversations. It's about practicalities. It's about providing solutions, because in the conferences, the seminars, you will have your councillors, will have senior management within municipalities, various departments, and also representatives from National Assembly, provincial governments that do attend and participate. It then becomes important for us to align ourselves, as the CEO is saying. It could be any of the professional body, depending on your focus area, depending on your profession. But that sense of belonging, it adds value, not only on professionalizing, but also in enhancing the capacity that we often talk about. CEO, also on your side, as we edge closer to the next segment, there's a question that came from Agnes Malibane, and I did see that she joined earlier. And most importantly, despite the question itself, as I will frame it, she's from Tswelangpili Primary Cooperative. She's a director there. It goes back to the diversity of the audience, but most importantly, the interest on how our municipalities, as very important institutions, are being run. The question itself is on professionalizations, focusing on standards of practice as to how can municipalities ensure that professional qualifications and continuous learning are embedded in service delivery. And again, that linkage becomes important. And SIGFARO, as a membership-based institute, definitely whatever SIGFARO does, ultimately, it's something that should be translating to service delivery, as Mamu Agnes has indicated, but also referring to the leadership pipelines. What strategies can municipalities adopt to attract and retain skills? And again, I believe this question, as Uzuki as well, will be coming in shortly. It equally also is relevant for the discussion at a municipal level. Let me then transition and welcome Dr. Marisa Lapuskachny, who will then, from the National School of Government perspective, and there is collaboration that's also taking place between the NSG together with SIGFARO. She'll also be sharing like some valuable insights, lessons, and what is it that we can all draw from this particular webinar, specifically from the insights of NSG. Doc, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much. And as mentioned, I'm from the National School of Government. We are a national department that work across the public sector as it relates to professionalization and our mandate for learning and professional development, but in the Ministry of Public Service and Administration. And I'm very grateful to participate here today. And I'm reminded by all of the discussions that we had that, you know, professionalization, as we frame it, it's like the story of two seeds. And I'm putting on, as I promised, I'm putting on my timer just to ensure that I keep to how much time, you know, I have available. So the point that I'm trying to make is that if we do not continuously take care of what we want to professionalize and we just leave the seed to grow out in the field, we might not end up with the results that we are envisaging. And this conversation that we are having now is really of great importance, because it's not just about changing structures and how we build our municipal systems, but it's about the people and the ethics and the performance of these institutions, as we know. And it's critical, as the white paper identifies a pivotal shift in reimagining how municipal capability, integrity, and performance, how we understand it. And municipalities needs all of these to make it successful and ensure that we deliver services to our communities, because that's ultimately the intent. I wanted to share this slide just to remind us that from the National Professionalisation Framework, and I've heard it here and there, it's much more about just developing an individual person. It's a systems approach that wants us to have a public sector that is principled and valued, that is talented and skilled and relevant, but also ensuring that we have the right skills in the right places, that we build the public service of the future. And I think CEO mentioned that to say that, remember, we also have to think about the youth, the systems in the university environment, and all of those. We want to be at the top of the game. So the webinar asks us to talk about administrative capacity, politicization, ethical lapses, and limited consequence management. And I'm looking at these from the perspective of the NSG specifically, and what the role is that we play in this environment. So I thought to look at some statistics in the problem that we are facing. The latest Auditor General reports, we know the statistics, we know that things are not going as well as we want them to go. And the national framework then has identified that the problems that we have, and that are not only local government specific, it's public sector issues, is not just a training problem. It's although training becomes the engine that drives and helps us, it's still a systems approach that we need to follow to ensure that we attain the goals that we set ourselves in all the plans, the National Development Plan, the Medium-Term Development Plan, and then the specific outcomes that we envisage with professionalisation. So the 5 pillars in the professionalisation framework then looks at, as we have heard specifically, how do we make sure that we employ the right people? Because if we say leadership in a municipality is unethical, there are issues with integrity, with management, it means that we probably didn't get the right person into the position. So we talk about Nukela specifically in that space from a public service perspective, and we've expanded that now to a project with local government, so that you have a pre-entry examination that helps people who wants to come into those positions of senior management and leadership to understand what is expected of them as public servants, and what they need to do, but also to test them, so there's formal examinations. That is how we want to make sure that we bring the right person into the system. But we also recognize that when we bring people into the system, there might be a specialist, either a specialist engineer, it might be a legal specialist, it might be a financial specialist, but they might not understand what it means to be a public servant. And I always say, all of us are public servants by choice. We are not public servants because somebody forced us to be. So through an induction process, we help people to understand what it means to be a public servant, what the policies, the rules, and the environment requires of us. But then we sometimes forget about all those of us, some of us like me, who have been in the system for 20 years, 30 years, and to remind us what is currently needed in South Africa for us to ensure that we deliver the service that are expected, and that we do through reorientation at the National School of Government. Then there's regulations that we need to make sure, specifically in planning and performance management, because what you sometimes find in institutions, you might find a leader or an individual who gets acknowledged for excellent performance, but the institution is not performing. And there needs to be that integrated approach to say that performance management is not something that is just linked to me as Marisa. It needs to link me to my role, to the achievement of my specific space, to the achievement of my institution. And it's also not only integrating performance management for individuals, but also performance management in the broader system. of public sector, so that we have systems that integrate, that we all work toward the same goals, where the DPME then plays a critical role. In Pillar 4, we talk about continuous learning and professional development, and sometimes we stop at training. And I'm very, very grateful to have heard so many times that it's much more than training. It's about ensuring that we continue to build and retain the skills and the knowledge and the relevant capabilities of our professions as the professions also grow and develop. And we do that at the NSG through our programs, but in Pillar 4, we also have made sure that, and as a case study, I wanted to present this to say that we've identified core programs that we call compulsory programs that was directed by the Minister of Public Service and Administration, that we thought, all right, based on what the professionalisation framework says, we need to professionalise key professions firstly. We put those into a list, and we require all public servants to participate and successfully complete these, because we believe it's the starting point. And that has helped us to achieve that integrated approach, make sure that professionalization, that learning, that development of staff becomes core and is in the center. And this has helped us to grow in the national and provincial sphere. And we believe that from the same perspectives, it can also assist HR practices in local government to follow that same kind of route. And what we've done is, this is just an overview slide, and I'm sharing the slides so they will be shared with everyone. I don't want to talk to the detail of it. We did evaluation studies on these compulsory programs, and we found that it's really assisted with uptake. So in other words, your reach of the knowledge and the capabilities that you want to share has increased. We have received relatively positive feedback on these programs. 80%, more than 80% of happy clients from financial and supply chain management specifically. And then also in our open distance e-learning, which is an offer that we bring to the public sector, that's courses and programs that we regard as critical, that are free of charge. We have had great successes. And we've seen that once we start using technology, and especially when we are able to offer some of the critical courses and programs free of charge, we have had uptakes, I think in the last financial year, registrations of more than 100,000, completion rate of 80%. So why do we want to bring right people into the system? We want to bring the right people into the system from the start, especially at leadership and management positions, because we know that leadership and the health of institutions start from the top. So the Nukela program is a program that guides and provides that knowledge and expertise of how to deal with the problems, how to deal with the realities that we have at the in the public sector at the moment. And in that sense, we make sure that we also extend it to the local government sector. We have a special project, and my timer is going to go off soon, so I'm going to have to rush a little bit. So also induction programs, we have a project with local government that has just started, because we believe inducting individuals into the system are critical for us to ensure that we do the work well and we are able to do work towards to citizen satisfaction, because it's the public value that we add that makes it more important. I've already spoken about planning and performance management, that it needs to integrate because it's about citizen impact. I want to talk about professional development partnerships, especially with professional bodies such as SIGFARO and many others. And these are not just, they are not just in name. We use these partnerships, especially in the NSG environment, to give us access to those expert knowledge spaces where we might not have that in the NSG. We do not have specialists necessarily in monitoring and evaluation or in ICT or in those areas in the NSG. So we bring it on board to make sure that we have a curriculum that is relevant. And we believe that building relevant curriculum is so critical. But beyond that, we also build relationships, and I've heard discussions about it throughout the presentations. We've built relationships with universities and with the education sector to help us to reach the greater audience, because there are more than 2 million public servants in the public sector. And as the NSG, we understand that this is not something that can be achieved to educate and have continuous professional development throughout the system. But in addition to that, we also recognize that ethical governance must be embedded in everything we do. So ethics is a standalone program. Yes, we offer it standalone, but we also build it into the program. So when it's important that whether we are doing a performance plan or a performance agreement, or we're doing a training in intervention, we're developing a qualification, we have to build ethical governance into the way that we work as public servants, because we do not, and we can only learn that through the real problems that we see, all the commissions that we have, the problems that exist in the country. Having a practical solution will help us to create that integrated approach where we can deliver quality. We have agreements with many professional bodies, because we believe that those are the institutions that actually help us to bring together the public service and the knowledge and the professional status that our public servants should have. Because what happens, we bring somebody into the system and they are registered, I'll use finance as an example, as a CA, and they have a good standing with a professional body. But in their professional learning career or their professional career over 10 years, that expires, and we never actually take note of that again. We don't make sure that our employees retain that professional status throughout their career in the public service. So what we bring on, when we bring on board, we don't bring on board professional bodies to maintain the HR environment in local government, for instance, but we bring them on board to make sure that we provide an easier pathway, maybe for access in some instances. We have some of the professional bodies where we have negotiated that they will look at special rates for registration for public servants. So we try to embed some of the requirements of the professionalization into these arrangements and agreements that we have, so that we can make it easy for public servants to comply with the requirements of their profession, irrespective of what their profession is. I heard in the beginning our keynote speaker, she spoke about ICT, AI, all of those things. And we know that as the NSG, for instance, we do not have the capability and the knowledge internally, the curriculum or the content specialists to develop that. So we have created access to the broader public sector through our e-learning processes, our registration processes, to a number of technical qualifications, technical courses that you can enroll for, and at the moment they are offered for free. There are NEMISA programs that are offered for free. Microsoft offers a number of seminars, webinars, and masterclasses through the NSG for free. And we have recently reached an agreement with ICITP to also give professional development points for the programs of the NSG as for registered members. So we're trying to build this whole system that assists us to make sure that we have a professional state, not just in name, but also in the real way that we work. I want to mention, just before I talk about risks and mitigations, the CEO spoke about the education system and how do we look at the youth and those who are still in the pathway. And there's something that we talk about at the NSG, that, for us to have an ethical and capable public sector, We need an ethical and capable state and ethical and capable citizenry. So it's more than just us looking at our employees. And what we've done from the NSG side, we actually have set up a committee, a team across the education sector to embed curriculum knowledge on ethics and public value right from junior, grade 1, all the curriculum embedded in the curriculum throughout high school, and then also how do we embed it in everything that we do at university level? Because it's as I've mentioned, and I also always say professionalization is a journey, and it's a journey that will outlive all of us, because we can never say it has an end date. We shouldn't look at it as having an end date. We should look at professionalization as continuous, as a spiral, because we need to grow as a country and as a public sector. And we cannot do it alone. We can only do it through partnerships where we all have our own role to play, and it's multi-sector partnerships, as has been mentioned, which I really appreciate, because we need to be able to influence and integrate everything that we do to make sure that we have a capable ecosystem that changes the way we live and work as public servants. So being a little bit practical, I think the Nukela project that we've started with local government through COCTA and SAGA, there's a working group that's working on that. We need to continue and fast track that, because it's important that we get the right people into the process. We have induction and reorientation projects that have started with the teams that we need to fast track. I believe we need to strengthen the work that we do there. I think there's a great opportunity to identify mandatory training and development. In addition to what I know that there are mandatory programs for, I think, CFOs that National Treasury prescribe. But in addition to those, there's something that can be done across the sector that focuses more than on just on the financial spaces, and have priority programs for capacity and service delivery and strengthening the key partnerships. And this is just a final reminder to say, what happens if we don't do this? If the roads in a municipality are terrible, we cannot transport products from that district or from that province or from that part of the country to where it needs to go. It creates barriers to trade. There's no productivity because people cannot do their work. Actually, we lose the economy. People lose their jobs. We actually go in the opposite direction of where we want to go, of growing our environment and creating more unemployment. And ultimately, failure means that we fail as a public sector and we fail as South Africa. If we do not do our job well when we professionalize our staff, we are responsible collectively if we fail as South Africa. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and thank you for the additional time, our program director. I appreciate that.
And that will get me in trouble, but I can manage that. Okay. Thanks for that. And without really wasting time, because we still have Otwa who's going to be coming in. I'll request the panelists, because what I've done, I've dropped all the questions directly into your inboxes, so that as we take the next round, which I believe will be the last, because we've got only 30 minutes, we will then be going through those questions. For you, Doc, there is a question from Malin Ogawa from within the Johannesburg metropolitan area. She's a senior director, and it's more about how do you ensure behavioral change. And I believe from the side of NSG, I thought it could be better be attempted by yourself. And she's specific to talk about conscious leadership. We talk about ethical leadership, ethical governance, and I believe within the curriculum of the NSG, when it comes to leadership, those are some of the focus areas, because she further says training has not helped, and maybe so and maybe not, and you can share your experience based on the intake of the NSG and maybe those who return and give the reviews, because it also depends on how the training is packaged. Is it targeted? But you will have that opportunity when you come again. Let me usher in Odwa Benga, as I've indicated, from the Chartered, Sigfaro is in my mind, South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, and himself is a chartered accountant, a lead, as I've indicated, within the space of local government. Odwa, specifically from the side of SAICA, you've heard the conversations. We've met in many other conversations, just the insights from SAICA, given where the country is, what are the current programs, and specifically from not narrowly the accountancy profession. I've come across a lot of chartered accountants specifically. It could be the environment that they exist in. We do know the political dynamics at times. How is SAICA contributing towards this big agenda of professionalization, capacity development, and ethical governance?
Thank you so much, Zolani, and for the opportunity to speak to the audience today. Yeah, as you said, we are SAICA, and obviously we spend most of our time in the finance units where we have members that eventually join the local government space and government as a whole, but mostly contributing in the finance units. And I think as a start, Zolani, we as professional bodies, not just SAICA, we have a very big role to play in ensuring that we bring members that can join the space, right, and contribute towards a professionalized municipal environment. And even when our members are already in the space, we also have that big role of ensuring that they maintain their ethical requirements as set out by us as professional bodies, and we monitor them, right, to make sure that they are always doing the right thing. And where there are issues that we're picking up, then we must be able to deal with those. And this ethics must not just be something that only arises when the person is qualified, but it must be embedded in terms of the competency framework that we have as the professional body, so that by the time the person leaves the education environment, they already know and are able to apply themselves ethically in the environments that they work in. You are very specific to ask about some of the initiatives that we are doing to make sure that we support this professionalization initiative. And I think perhaps as a starting point, my role is that of advocacy. And part of that process entails me ensuring, and SAICA as SAICA wide, ensuring that the environment that we bring members into, even all of us as professional bodies, the environments that we bring members into are environments that we know that members can thrive in and they can actually be able to operate in. So that involves a lot of advocacy. And when these policy documents are being issued, we must take the opportunity to contribute and comment on those policy documents so that our members are able to join and are able to operate as is required. So we did take that opportunity, even with this white paper on local government, to contribute and submit our commentary to the COGTA for them to be able to be considered. And I must say that we supported a lot of the initiatives that are around the professionalization of the public sector. And I think one of the key areas that we are always, it's almost like a big elephant in the room that we sort of avoid talking about, is we know that the persons and the members that we bring in are professionalized, but they come into an environment where there's a leadership that is not necessarily as professionalized as we should be. So we also need to focus on the counselors, right? So that the environment as a whole is a professionalized one. And counselors are able to understand the work that is required of them and are also able to act ethically so that so that they are able to set their right tone at the top. other initiatives that we're bringing in is we need government, right, local government, to also build its own timber. There was mention around the young professionals that basically join the space. And there are also opportunities, for these young professionals to be trained, right? So local government, the different municipalities must be able to create their own training offices so that they are able to build their own staff complement to make sure that when they grow into this sector, they already are professionalized, their ethics is embedded in them. Technically, they are very strong. And SAICA is able to support the training offices in that regard. We do already have some of the metros that are training offices and the treasuries that are training offices, and those treasuries also deploy a lot of the trainees to the municipalities to basically support them. Obviously, as a professional body, we must always make sure that there's continuous training, right, for our members, so that we make sure that they are technically strong at all times. They know exactly what they need to do, and they maintain the standards that we've set, the very high standards that we've set for them, to be able to give their skill set into the sector. So we need to make sure that continuous training is supported and it is developed and it is given to the members. And we must be very intentional about the type of training that we give to our members. There was mention about practical training, which is very important, so that we can demonstrate exactly how it is that they must be able to apply themselves within the environments. I've already spoken about the ethics, the codes of professional conduct that we must always be creating as professional bodies, and be holding our members accountable when they do not abide by those codes of professional conduct. So that is something that must be embedded. It is already embedded in terms of the environment. Capacity building and capacity development. This is something that is a passion project of mine. I must say, I really love the space of capacity development. We have specific and targeted training for municipal officials, right? Especially from the accounting side, because we know that is where we mostly specialize. And this is not something that we are doing on our own. We do have to collaborate as the public sector as a whole with the various stakeholders, your COGTAs, your national treasuries, your treasuries in the provinces, right? So that we can be able to bring fit for purpose training that can actually assist the municipalities, and not merely training for the sake of training, but training that they can take back and make sure that they are able to apply back at the various institutions that they work in. And we are very intentional about this type of capacity building, in that it is not only aimed at SAICA members, it is aimed at everyone in local government, even if you are not a member. Because what we know and understand is that those that are professionalized already do need the support right at the bottom. And we need to basically make sure that everyone is therefore capacitated, even those that are still at the entry level, so that they are able to better support those that we know are already professionalized. So we need to make sure that we contribute and focus on everyone and not leave everyone behind. This is something that we've been doing for quite a number of years now, focusing on specific provinces because of the partnerships that we've created in those provinces. But it's also something that we are looking into expanding going forward. You also spoke about, you also asked us about what it is that we need to do, going into the future. It is very important. I think I cannot stress enough the advocacy side, because it is all very well, good and well to say members must join the space, but what environment are we sending these members into? So we must always have this advocacy, fixing the environment as well, so that they are able to operate effectively. And I think we need to also have a focus on the various stakeholders that contribute in local government. We've spoken about the administration side, we've spoken about the councillors, but there are other oversight structures that assist in ensuring that there's good governance and that they exercise oversight over the finances as well of the municipalities, and that the administration is also doing the right thing. And that structure, one of those structures is audit committees, which must always never ever leave behind. And even in the space of professionalizing, we must always also remember the internal auditors, because they also play a key role in ensuring that the environment, the key controls are working and are effective in those environments. So without taking any further time, I'll leave it at that, Zolani.
That's wonderful work, and thanks a lot for that. Even extending what you do as SAICA beyond just the members. It also touches on some of what is coming through from our audience, focusing specifically on communities, on citizens, and we've deliberately opened these webinars that broad because we are of the belief that solving our problems is a group project. What I'll be doing, I'll be allowing each panelist, based on the questions that have come through, which also will form part of maybe the closing comments or remarks, to which we'll start from Uzuki. But I've got one question for you, Otwa. Also a question that came through during the registration. It might seem as if there is a bias because most of the questions came even in the chats. If we see Temba and Grovu, for an example. So as we also conclude, because some of those comments will be valuable, linking to the one that I just recently touched on focusing broadly on citizens, the communities in building our institutions. There's one that came from Ruben Matoma from Makado, that being the city, on how does integrity develop, and in a layman's language, what is integrity? I've reserved that for you because given various institutes, as I've indicated, various councils that play in this particular space, there could not be any better person within the panel, basically to attempt to this particular question. But as I usher in Zuki, there's a question that came from the president of SIGFARO, Louise Mala, within the city of Cape Town. It's more on a comment first, which is very important. And again, Zuki, I'm raising this so that if it's something that you can reflect on as you take the mic, is with the high unemployment rate, many workers are only looking to, and opening inverted commas, have a job, close quotes, which is a reality. Many will never be encouraged to embrace the corporate culture, study further in their field of operation et cetera, as they are not where they want to be. And again, this one, I believe, you will be the one or better placed to reflect on. But the question is, how do we address this? Let me allow you to come in, Zuki, based on the very first question, and also touching on few comments that have come, and specifically this question from Louise. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Zolani. I think I'm going to start with the last question of unemployment. You know, for now, the biggest concern for me, and I think it should be for a lot of municipalities and or public sector, is the issue of unemployed graduates. You will find out that the learners or students that come from TVET colleges get more practical exposure, as well as are employed more than people that went to study for degrees and so forth. I think the first thing that we need to look at in terms of that is it's understandable that those from TVET colleges they get funding from the SETA or Department of Higher Education. It's a question that I actually wanted to pose to the LG SETA in terms of what are we planning to do with the unemployed graduates? Can't we also treat them the same as those learners from TVET colleges? Because our database is full of unemployed graduates. And the issue of unemployment of the general public is people think that to be employed, you must work for the municipality. People also think that they don't think about, self-employment. And also maybe they do not take self-employment seriously. Also, from the government side, what are we doing with those that are sitting at home and not get employment? What skills are we ensuring that they have so that they can be able to be self-employed? So unemployment is it's bigger than municipalities. We are not there really to ensure that people are unemployed. Everybody has to play a role to ensure that our people are capacitated with necessary skills. And another thing is, when there are opportunities, how do we make sure that those opportunities, they reach whoever is supposed to be reached? Someone sent me an email. They have an opportunity. I'm not going to mention who. They have an opportunity for people that want skills like sewing skills, dressmaking, and a lot of other opportunities, but they can't get a list of SMEs from the Department of Labor, from whoever is supposed to provide them, so that they can reach who is intended for the training. So those are the things that we need to hold hands together, private, national, provincial, local government, to ensure that we try by all means to address unemployment.
Okay, no, that's great. And maybe as a last chunk after the panelists have come through, specifically on those 5 key priority areas.
Okay.
Maybe you can, as we'll be wrapping up, but
That's
I'll allow
good.
other panelists to come in. But
Okay.
also from the context of Louise, it was also more from a scenario where already you've got the official within the institution. For one reason or the other, it might be restructuring, displacement, or we know political pressure at times where municipalities might end up employing someone, gets into the institution. How do we deal with those? But I'll try to see if I give you a minute or two just to reflect on those ones after we conclude taking other panelists in terms of the other questions. Let me allow Ati to come in specifically on that question that came from Duduzi, just to reflect on that. And any other aspect, Ati, that you might have picked from the comments, the other presentations, just your insight and overview. Over to you.
Thank you, Zulani. Appreciate it. Coincidentally, the question that was asked, the municipal managers asked me exactly the same question. What are the things that they need to do tomorrow after I've presented professionalization in the framework in the detail to them? So my response was, first of all, professionalization is not only about qualifications. It is not about experience. It is actually about behavior, and it's creating a culture so that the whole organization is professional, not only the individual. So the way that we act, the way that we do things, the way that we operate on a daily basis must be professional, but we can only do that if we have professional staff in the process. So the 6 things I've said to them that they need to do is, first of all, They must review the senior management capability, not the qualifications, the actual capability in terms of their responsibilities. So that, and then obviously if there's gaps, address the gaps. The second thing I said, review the recruitment processes and to make sure that it's competency based in all elements. In other words, Regulation 890 is very clear in terms of the requirements of competencies for certain roles and so on. So how do we make sure that we appoint competent people in those positions? The third thing that I've said, strengthen succession planning. Okay, because currently, and you all will agree with me, local government in South Africa at this stage is in a major crisis. Okay, we don't have leaders that will follow through the processes. So if we don't do something critically now, we have a bigger problem going forward. And as was presented a bit earlier with what can happen if we don't professionalize, what will happen if we don't have competent leaders that can take municipalities forward. So strengthen succession planning, review performance management system. Not to say that we have a system that was indicated earlier, and that we do that, but how do we use performance management to develop our staff and not merely evaluate, but also making sure that we have proper monitoring and evaluation processes in place so that we're effective in the ways that we do things. And then invest in leadership development, not only technical training, but fit for purpose training based on the gaps and the competency gaps that has been identified. And most importantly, create a culture of create a professional culture. So professionalization begins long before the legislation requires us to do it. It actually becomes a behavioral thing. So just to conclude as well from our side, what is important is to first of all maybe appoint a professionalization steering committee, develop a professionalization dashboard, and then unpack professionalization within the municipality. So it is not one model fits all, one framework fits all, or one solution fits all. It is in your municipality. If I unpack professionalization, what are the gaps identified where we say we're not professional in the way that we do things? Okay. And then go through, develop a 100-day plan to say, okay, these are the following things that we will do to get to that point. And that maybe is the starting point and the critical pillars that you should start on when you professionalize.
No, thanks a lot for that. And it will go a long way for many municipalities because of the issues that we've touched on. If you were to do, as you indicated as well, the outcomes of the questions that you asked from the MMs, it really shows that we still have a long way to go. But we are there because, as I've indicated, the work that you do, the collaborations that you are involved in, they are addressing exactly those issues. As I allow the CEO of SIGFARO to come in, just to take one question, yes, it might not seem to be related to the conversation itself, but then I'm taking it because it comes from one of many other institutions and partners that we often work with, Ashraf Adam from Local Government Matters in Cape Town. It was more on, could the panel members also reflect on Section 154 of the Constitution and how espousing provincial governments can perform their obligations in the context of the thoughts emerging from the draft white paper. On this one, Ashraf, I'll attempt it briefly myself because I often say if we don't get cooperative governance right, going back to Section 41 of the Constitution itself, and then linking that to the current developments in the white paper itself, because cooperative governance is one of the key focus areas. We need to get that right amongst the government departments or spheres of government, public and private sector, and various other role players. If we get that and also understanding Section 154 in terms of the support that is then required, is it targeted? Do we have provincial departments across the country. In the main, that will be your provincial treasury, your COGTA, that take it upon themselves to get the hands dirty. We've seen in other provinces, even Auditor General acknowledging the involvement and participation of such departments. But most importantly, and as I conclude, it's more on the bill that is in front of National Assembly on this aspect of support and interventions, which begins to regulate or legislate the issue of the support itself. I think this response and comment sheds some light, as I've indicated. For us to get anything that we do, it becomes a group project and a collective responsibility. CEO Naki, let me allow you. There were some few questions that also I shared them with you, just for your reflections, also touching on some of the aspects that came from the presentations, but also from the comments that have come through from our audience. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think I'll only spend a bit of time talking to key strategies that one can then utilize to implement as part of the key comments that come through or that came through. This will also speak to the element of addressing to some extent the skills requirement in terms of how do you then see a transforming municipality utilizing the same tool of professionalization thereof to make an impact. Case in point, I think the first thing first is to strengthen the skills training. We are talking about the same thing here to say professionalize your key competent or people thereof through different learning programs, continuous programs, or continuous development programs is one of those that are there to make sure that you see the impact. But again, bring in the element of governance to that extent through competency frameworks and also an element of target capacity building where you are also dealing with the issues of leaderships there in terms of that area. Another strategy will be the element of setting performance standards where you have got clear accountability. This is now the evaluation process where your promotion or your key deliverable outputs it's linked to specific targets. It means that those senior leaders that are entering into the clear accountability deliverables thereof are also aligned to your performance agreement. This will also speak to the element of ethics, the issue of also bringing in the issues of transparency as part of the key strategy. Another aspect will be because always in our platform we always try to diversify. We don't talk professionalization without bringing the element of modernizing your operation because I think we always focus on the people than less focusing on the systems. So we let the system to be very, very aging, and some of those are no longer relevant to the changing environment that we are seeing. Majority of our services are still from a historic perspective in terms of how they can make an impact. You'll find that some of those are still very manual. So we are also encouraging the element of digitalizing, having data-driven decisions so that through data, a specific person will want to pay for services, for example, but you'll find that the same amount that person has to pay is the same amount that person has to use to travel to a certain municipality. So all of those dimensions thereof needs to be taken into account when you deal with key strategies. Lastly, I think the element of having a direct impact on service delivery. This is the issues that were touched to say we wouldn't want a situation where we are focused on accolades, clean audit, but we want faster response on queries. So we say that what is the journey? How are we then reducing the journey of a specific citizen? So it means that if it took a citizen 3-4 days to get a specific service, if we can reduce that to 2 hours, you'll realize that now we start to make an impact. Bringing element of efficiency is going to have a broader impact in terms of now we want to talk of element of restoring and improving the element of trust, because the main care that we have from our side also is to say, how do we then work together to bring back the trust that we so want to restore? That when we talk of service delivery, most of these citizens will have credible trust to say that all our municipalities are able to deliver in terms of those mandates. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Let me allow you directly as well as Odwa. I see we are already losing a few. It could be because of the limitations. Let's conclude about 12:05. Just briefly, Doc, reflecting on those questions and other comments that might have come through.
Thank you very much. I am reflecting shortly on the questions. Maybe I think the first question about ensuring behavioral change, I don't think you can ever ensure somebody's change, but you can facilitate. And then I think, if I must not to go through all the notes that I made and to help you to reach 12:05, to say we must make sure, number one, that we get the right people into the system. And number two, we must be efficient in exiting those who are not doing what they're supposed to do the way they are doing it. Consequence management, making sure, if I can summarize, maybe that's the way we can change the way we live and work. And then there was a question from Agnes that I don't want to ignore, that said, how can they be part of that learning culture, creating that learning culture? And one of my children always tells me, Mom, be the change that you want to see. Create that within yourself, change just 1 or 2 people around you, and they will change many others. And in that way, I think we can all become new. We don't always have to rely on somebody telling us, from the top how we should be. And I think we need, last point I want to say is, when we talk about specifically HR responsibilities, we sometimes talk about training and professional development for now. What am I doing now? We forget about the future. It is critical that we also ensure that we develop our public servants, our staff, to be able to navigate this future that is rapidly changing with technology, with all of those things. So we have to also keep an open mind when we do professionalization, that we also look into that future. It's not just professionalization. It's not just a function of HR. It needs to be integrated in everything that we do in our institutions, from planning to management. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Doc. Odwa, your last reflections as we get to the conclusion.
Thanks, Zolani and the fellow speakers. I think one of the questions that you raised was around integrity. What is it? What does it mean? And I think if we just take it to its simplest form, it's us acting honestly all the time and being straightforward and transparent in our engagements. As we engage our communities, right, we must bring them to trust us. In fact, it's one of the building blocks towards getting the trust that you were talking about between ourselves as municipalities and our communities. When we engage with our councillors and basically pushing back on the things that perhaps they may want us to do that we know that we should not be doing. So that is another way of us demonstrating that we have and we carry ourselves with a lot of integrity. So let's have that open and transparent conversation amongst one another. And that's the only way, in fact, that's one of the ways that we can make sure that this professionalized environment, that environment that I was talking about earlier on, that can allow members to thrive. Yes, integrity will go a long way in terms of making sure that we can get that right. Thanks, Alan.
On this note, let me take this opportunity to thank the panelists. As you have seen also from the comments, the charts on how some of the audience have drawn lessons, as they usually do from our webinars. But this one was not an isolation in terms of it being a learning platform. And I won't be able to give each of you the last round, as I've indicated. It's already 5 past. We normally stop the clock at 12. But then we said, let's go an extra mile for today. But we know the future will present itself, where we delve into these conversations, these topics in future. But most importantly, as I conclude, thanking again our platinum sponsor in business engineering in ensuring that we keep going. Without that kind of support, we will not be here today. And our panelists, of course, for making this quite an informative, inspiring, not just a conversation, but an empowerment session. Without you, we could not have delivered it better. And of course, our partners, as I've mentioned earlier, in terms of these conversations. And of course, Dan and Tim from Future Cities Africa and the team from the Municipal Edge. To all, I'm still Zolani Zonyane, the editorial director, curator and the moderator of the webinars within the Municipal Edge. Until we meet next time, it's goodbye from my side.